While you're doing that, I just want to thank Pastor Chris for giving me this opportunity tonight. I have stood and preached and taught literally thousands of times in my life. I've stood in jails and in prisons, behind bars, spoke to inmates. I've stood on street corners and spoke to bums. I've stood in middle parks in the South Bronx, in Fort Apache, and preached the gospel and shared the gospel with youth in the South Bronx and their parents. I've been in super bad places. God used me in a way that a lot of people aren't willing to be used, and I don't say that boastfully. I say it with much humility. I pastored 2 churches. My churches were not the typical churches. My church, both churches I went to had less than 8 people or less than 10 people when I got there. When I left, they were much bigger. The congregation of my church was not the typical congregation. I probably had less than 25% white people. Everybody else was other thans. Our church motto in both churches I pastored was church with no walls. Now that didn't mean we didn't have any walls in our building. We did. We had walls, just like any other church. But I always made it my mission to not build walls up between God and people. And our focus was reaching people. And something happened to me along the way. And I'll share more about that with you. But back in 2008, I walked away from God. I gave up my ministry. I gave up my family. I just walked away from all of it. Made some terrible choices in my life. Cost me everything I had. Since then, it was just a downward spiral. When I tell you that I lost everything, I lost everything. I slept on a boat with a dog for over 6 months. It was during that time in my life with nothing but my dog, Deacon, and my boat. I met my wife, and the mess that I was, I told her up front, you don't understand what you're getting when you get me. I am a wreck. My life is in shambles. I'm terrible. But God. We wasn't saved. Matter of fact, and LaToya's got an amazing testimony in and of itself. LaToya was 38 years old and never even knew the story of David and Goliath. She was completely unchurched, unlearned, knew nothing about God. She had attended a church, but it was an Episcopalian church. And she just went there a few times, and obviously she didn't like an Episcopalian church. For 38 years, my wife laid outside a beautiful gate with an ugly problem called sin. Last July 21st, I woke up one Sunday morning after many different events began to happen in our lives. And to the surprise of my wife and my children, I said, get up, we're going to church. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. I didn't want to go to church, but I had to. I fought myself all the way there while I was getting dressed in the car. I did not want to go, but I knew I needed to. I had reached the bottom. And when I say I reached the bottom, I reached the bottom. I sit in the church in the sanctuary. It was kind of neat. To me, it's neat because God is neat. He's creative in more ways than we will ever think or even know. I mean, good gracious. God is, He has a sense of humor, and He is creative. But we walk into this church, over 3,000 people in the church. My first time I'd been in a church for any serious thing since February of 2008. I went there with a purpose that morning. part of me did. Most people, if they were going to church like that, it was that size, they would just try to go to the back of the audience. That's where my wife thought we were going, but I said, nope. We went as close to the front as we could get, which just happened to be the second pew from the front. About 3,000 people. She said, later on, she said, why did we go all the way to the front? I said, well, you know, any other time, if you want to go to a concert, you want the best seats. Where's the best seats?
In the front.
In the front. You want to go to a race? Where's the best seats? Well, you say in the front, but they're not till you get hit with chicken bones and all that other good stuff. But the best seats were at the front. I didn't want any distractions coming in my life. I was there for a purpose. Part of me was. I sit there and I listen to the preacher preach. At the end of his sermon, I sit there in my seat. He said, backslider, come home. Wow. I grabbed hold of the pew in front of me, and I literally, y'all are my age, maybe a day or two older. You remember the old terminology, white knuckling the pew? I literally white knuckled the pew that was in front of me, holding on to it so hard. The old man was saying, no, you got to give up too much. No, you got to. By the grace of God, I turned loose and I walked to the front of the church. Right behind me was my wife. 38 years. Didn't know nothing about God. Just so you know, if you need anybody to pray for you that can touch heaven, talk to this woman. The reason I say that is because she genuinely has what we call childlike faith. Why? Because she's 38 years old. Everything's brand new. If she reads it in the book, she believes it. That's our problem as we get older. We read stuff, and because of our experience and stuff, we go, maybe God. No. If LaToya Merrill reads something in the Bible, she says, God said it, I believe it. It's settled. It was settled even if she didn't believe it. But she believes it. You need any prayer, you need somebody to talk to my wife. She is an adult child. So I hope that you've taken a minute and you wrote on these pieces of paper, because this is something that's real interesting. And I told you that I did this thousands of times, and I have. It's not exaggerating. I did this literally thousands of times in my life. But something I want you to understand is it's been 4,378 days. That's 11.995 years. That's less than half a day. 4,378 days since I've been in a church and been able to open up the Word of God and share what thus saith the Word of God. 4,378 days. Almost 12 years to the day was the last time I stood and I got to teach or preach about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I want to thank Pastor Chris. I'm a hard person to deal with. I just am. I'm harder to deal with now because I've experienced so much and I've been hurt so much in my life. If you don't want to know the truth about something, please don't ask me, because I might hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. I'm gonna. If I hurt your feelings, I'm doing that out of love, because this book saved my life. This book is real. It ain't nothing to play with. Sin will take you further than you ever wanted to go. It will keep you longer than you ever wanted to stay. And it will cost you far more than you ever wanted to pay. And so when it comes to the Word of God, when it comes to Scripture, I'm extremely serious about it. Now, more than ever before. Because I have also been the victim of people using this thing wrong. I've been a victim of people that throw people away. So I thank you for this opportunity. I hope after tonight you get a little something, because because I, like most people who minister in the Word, I don't want to just stand up here and just give you something to go ooh about. I want to give you something to think about and something that you can take home with you and apply to your life. And when struggles and trials and thoughts and different things come into your mind, I want you to be able to grab hold of at least one thing that you learned tonight. Because I believe this book, the Word of God, can change your life.
Yes.
If you let it. I'm not a baloney and spam kind of preacher. I don't like baloney and spam types of messages. What does that mean? A little bit of meat and a whole lot of filler? I like it when we come into the house of God and we love this place. Trust me, I done told you I'm honest. I'm super honest. If I didn't love this place, you would know it. We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have my family here. I'm that kind of dude. Take it or leave it. But we're here because we love this place. We love your pastor. We love the ministries that you guys have here. I don't know exactly how long we're going to be here. I'm not coming to go start a church somewhere and pull other people out. We have a ministry that we just got our state, the state part of our 501c3 back yesterday. We're beginning a ministry. The plan is, our plan is by the summer, the end of the summer or so, we're moving to the beach. Hopefully Merle's Inlet. We're moving to Merle's there. We're going to change the name to Merle's Inlet. We're starting a ministry called the Lighthouse of Destiny, which is a home for unwed mothers. Also another part of that ministry is we're going to be ministering to men of domestic violence. We're going to be pouring into young men that are victims of domestic violence, and also we're going to be pouring into young men and boys and men and help them get the value back and show them how valuable they are. So I'm not here to try to pull you away. I'm here, and I just want to pour into you every opportunity I get, any way that I can get, because I'm only here for a while. Boy, that sounds wild, don't it? I hope everybody wrote down on their piece of paper, on those 3 lines below those, each one that you wrote, what I want you to do while I'm talking is, that first line, I want you, where it says your favorite animal, I want you to write 3 adjectives to describe your favorite animal. On the next one down below it, where those blank lines are, write 3 adjectives that describes that next animal. And don't sit there and think about it for a long time. Just do it. On the third one, those 3 lines, 3 adjectives that describes that animal. Just go ahead and do it. Again, it don't require a lot of thinking. There is a reason why that I'm doing this. Right now, just so you know, I'm in the profession of sales. I sell solar systems, not the ones out there, but the ones that go on your home to produce electricity. So my job in sales is, I understand that I have got a limited amount of time to help someone understand that what I'm trying to offer them is something that will benefit them. Now look, I believe in it completely, 100%. Wouldn't be doing it if I didn't. But I have a short amount of time to tell people, listen, I can literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. You don't have to pay anything up front. The federal government's going to pay for 26% of it. You're not going to come out of pocket up front, nothing. You're not going to be, we're going to eliminate your Duke Energy bill or come close to it. It's not creating a new bill for you. It's you just taking the same amount of money that you're paying Duke Energy right now, in many cases taking less money than what you're paying Duke Energy right now, You invest that into a system that's going to produce your energy for you, and it's going to literally save you thousands of dollars. And it does. It literally saves thousands of dollars. If anybody wants an appointment, talk to me after church. So what I just did to you was what a lot of people call an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is something that you have to imagine getting on an elevator with somebody. And when you get on the elevator with that person, you have roughly between 20 and 30 seconds to tell them what you want to tell them or sell them on the idea of something before the door opens up and you get off or they get off. So you have to, in 30 seconds, you have to be able to explain in detail what it is that you're wanting to try to get across to somebody. Elevator pitches are extremely important. You need to know how to answer questions. You need to know, first of all, how you can answer a question while you're talking and your speech being answering the questions before they can think of them. You've got 30 seconds to tell them about the product you're selling or anything like that. 30 seconds. You have to give it your best shot. If you don't give it your best shot, if your pitch is not down, you're not going to make no deal on an elevator with a stranger. It's called an elevator pitch. But what I want to talk to you tonight is not an elevator pitch, but an elevator conversation. So you're in an elevator with someone. The door closes. You've got about 20 or 30 seconds with this person. That person looks at you and they ask you a question. Who are you? Who are you? What would your elevator conversation be at that time? Someone says, who are you? Would you know how to honestly answer that question? Right now, maybe ask yourself the question, who am I? Who am I? Now, you don't have all day to sit here and give your testimony and all those different things. You're in an elevator. You've got 20 to 30 seconds to explain to someone who you are. Most of us would say, well, I do solar cells. I am a husband. My wife's name is LaToya. I have 7 children, a dog, and a hypothetical squirrel. I live in Charlotte. I'm not going to be here for long, and then we're moving to the beach to start a ministry. I have 4 grandkids. The youngest is a baby. She's about 9 months old, maybe 10 months old. I don't really know. Don't get to see her a whole lot. And then the doors open. Well, is that really who I am? Our tendencies are to, instead of explaining who we are, we want to describe what we do. We want to talk about what we do, the things that we're involved in, and all these different things. And a lot of times people look at us, and when they say, who are you, they don't care to know about everything that you do. They want to know, who are you? Get all the stuff that you do away. Yes, the two correlate very closely together, and they should. But you're not what you do. That's not who you are. It's not who you are. It's what you do. And there's a very big difference between the two. Another question is, say that 2 people got on an elevator and you're a fly on the wall, and those people on the elevator began to talk, and there was an elevator conversation. Again, you're a fly on the wall. And one of those people asked the other one, who is Shane Merrill? Who is Jeff Paget? Who is Angel? You're a fly on the wall. You can't talk nothing but fly. But you got ears and you can hear. What would those people say about you? How would they describe you? Would the same person that you would pitch yourself to on an elevator about who you are, would that be the same person that someone else describes you as? Or would it be something entirely different? You see, what we do is we live in this world that perception is reality, but perception is not reality. Too many times, perception is the furthest thing away from reality. Rarely it ever lines up with it. You see, we may see ourselves one way, and the world or other people may see us a totally different way than the way that we really are. They see us a completely different way than how God sees us. Look at the third animal that you wrote down on that list. The third one. Anybody want to say what that third animal was you wrote down?
Monkey.
Who?
Monkey.
A monkey.
Lion.
A lion. Will you said a monkey. Will you tell me the three adjectives that you wrote down?
I mean, they're flexible, strong, they're agile.
Okay. A lion. What were your adjectives about a lion?
A hunter, a wild animal, and someone that likes to eat meat.
Anybody else want to share what that third animal? Yes, sir.
That was a pig.
A pig. 3 words that describes that?
Dirty, smart, tasty.
Dirty, smart, and tasty. Anybody else?
That's good.
A deer? Describe the 3 words that you wrote down. Describe a deer.
Beautiful, majestic, and skittish.
Just so you know, I love psychology. I love psychology. Psychology, sociology, politics, and religion. It's what I'm the best at. I love psychology. The third animal that you wrote down, that reflects how you see yourself.
Somebody's gonna say tasty and dirty over there.
No, you can't be writing. Don't be mark it out now. Don't mark it out.
Tiger.
That third thing that you wrote down, the third animal reflects how you look at yourself. Pretty accurate, huh? Some may not want to admit it. But I'm not the one that came up to this test. People much smarter than me did that have studied human psychology and human behavior and the human mind. They say this test is pretty accurate. The second animal. Now we're going to see what anybody said, if anybody's going to volunteer. Who wants to tell me about the second animal you wrote down?
Tiger.
A tiger?
As a pet? You want it as a pet?
I would. If you asking me, I would.
You're a monkey? Okay, well, tell me.
Well, they're cuddly, they're energetic, and they're sweet.
Cuddly, energetic, sweet.
Because she spent a lot of time with one, so.
I want a
You
monkey.
said tiger?
A miniature monkey.
Describe the tiger.
Yes.
If you look at a tiger, it's like she's saying, it's majestic looking to me, right? That means it's majestic looking. It is strong, right? And then he is fierce. And you gotta be afraid of him. And I love that. Like I love being surrounded by stuff.
That's all right.
I said dog.
A dog?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're loyal, they're cute, and they give you unconditional love.
Loyal, cute, unconditional love. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a wooden dog.
Wooden dog. 3 adjectives to describe your wooden dog.
It's quiet, it has no needs, and it's special because it got a carpet for me.
Just so you know, that second animal shows how people see you. When other people look at you, that's how they see. Furry. Please don't be mad at me. I wasn't the one who designed this test. I'm just the one who is giving it, and you didn't even know it.
Woody.
This ain't looking good.
No,
The first animal.
I gotta get mad.
What's the first animal?
A hyena.
A hyena.
That's a
Laughing hyena.
Because he sounds like one.
Describe.
Yeah, they're funny, they're happy, and they're an imitator.
Funny, happy, imitator. Who else?
I
A
said,
cat?
yeah, they're finicky, they're soft and cuddly, and they're loving.
I put cat.
I said dog.
No, yeah, I say no.
You said a deer? Okay. Describe
feet, we can eat.
Yeah.
They're cautious and they're wild.
Okay. So that animal, according to psychologists, describes who you really are.
Oh, Lord. So I always say with me, what you see is what you get. I think the same thing.
Would you say pretty accurate? Do you really, does who you really are?
Dumb and you're tasty.
So what does number one represent? I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
The first one is who you really are.
Okay.
Good.
It's so funny when we do things like this because people, they're like, ooh, wow. But the truth is it's pretty accurate. But here's the point of that test. Do you see yourself the same way that others see you?
Sometimes no.
If you were that fly on the wall in the elevator and you was listening to someone describe who you are, how different would it sound when they're talking about you compared to when you're describing yourself? For a lot of us, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to be a lot different. But who are we really? Who is Shane Merrill? You get to see what you think that I am. I see who I think I am. Then there's who I really am. But then there's another one there. It's who God says that I am. I want to just ask the question. I'm not going to get into it much at all tonight. But if this same scenario was posed, and you're on an elevator with someone, and they ask, "What is Life Church?" How would you respond? What is Life Church? A lot of us, because we're proud of this church, we would say we are a Pentecostal church. We are Spirit-filled. We don't just preach about the gifts of the Spirit, but we practice the gifts of the Spirit. We believe in healing. We believe in tongues. We believe in the interpretation of tongues. We believe in faith. We believe in miracles. We believe in prophecy. We do. And we could go on and on until the door is open and the person steps off the door. Is that who this church is? Those are not bad answers at all. No, it's great. It describes a lot about the church. But the question I'm wanting you to think about is when someone, you know who this church is, but what does the world see when it looks at this church? You see how it's different when you describe yourself and how someone else describes you and who you really are. That also takes place in church life. You may be asking yourself the question, why is this important to know who I am? The answer is pretty simple. Your perception of who you are rarely lines up with who God says that you are. And we need to know who God says that we are. That's what matters. That's what matters. Now look, I told you it's been a long time, over 4,000 days since I stood by. I never had to put any of these things on before. That's how long. We need to know who we are in God. We need to know that if there was an elevator conversation between God and someone else and someone asked God who we are, we need to know what God says about us. But you know, a lot of times, a real important thing is we need to know who God is so that we understand when He is in that elevator conversation about us, who it is that's talking about us. We all say we know who God is, but do you know who God is? In the Bible, in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you're to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Moses asked God a question. God was telling Moses, I've got something important for you to do. I need you to go to Pharaoh. I need you to go to the children of Israel. I need you to be the leader there. I need you to go to Pharaoh, and I need you to tell him, let my people go. I need you to lead them out. And Moses looks at God and says, God, who am I to say sent me when they ask? That was intentional because Moses stuttered. He wasn't the Moses that you think of that stood in front of Pharaoh and said, let my people go. He said, let my people go. And Pharaoh would look at Moses and look at him and hear him stutter and say, who sent you to me to say to let these people go? It was important at that moment in time. It was important when God called the Israelites and he told Moses that he was going to be their leader. It was important for them to understand who it was that sent Moses because Moses stuttered.
Yeah.
So he needed to know who sent him. So who was it? God simply told Moses, go and tell Israel, go and tell Pharaoh that I am sent you. So what does that mean? What kind of weight does that carry? When we say God is for us, then who can be against us? If we say God's got my back, if we say that God is my Father, who is this God? Who is this God that we're talking about? Well, let me tell you who this God is. The Bible says that, oh Lordy, brother, I can just see Pharaoh as he's standing in front of Moses saying, who sent you? And Moses said, I am. Pharaoh may not have known at that time who I am was, but I want to take a minute and tell you who I am is. The one that called you, the one that saved you, the one that delivered you, the one that's healed your body, the one that's taken care of you, the one who's never left you nor forsake you. I want to tell you just for a couple minutes who that I am is. That I am is El Shaddai, the Lord God Almighty. That I am is El Elyon, the Most High God. That I am is Adonai, Lord, Master. That I am is Yahweh, the Lord, Jehovah. Who is I am? He is Jehovah Nissi, the Lord my banner. He's Jehovah Rapha, the Lord my shepherd. He's Jehovah Shammah, the Lord that is there. He is Jehovah Teskadu, the Lord our righteousness. He is Jehovah Mikadas, I can't even say that word, the Lord our sacrifice that sanctifies you. He is El Olam, the everlasting God. He is Elohim, God. He is Quana, jealous. He is Jehovah God, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord that will provide. He's Jehovah Shalom, the Lord of peace. He is Jehovah Shabbat, the Lord of hosts. Can I tell you something? If Pharaoh knew who it was that was standing in front of him, not just knew who he was, but who sent him, he was that God. He was that I am that sent him. Pharaoh, if he understood that, he would have immediately let Moses go. But I want to tell you something tonight. That same list of the names of God that I read to you is the same God that walks with you every single step, every single day. Anytime you lay your head down at night, that's the same God that's there with you. Every time you face a trouble or a trial on your job, guess who it is that's right there with you? Those same gods that I just mentioned. The great I am. I am is your Father. I am is your best friend. I am is the one who walks with you when nobody else will walk with you. I am is the one who sees you in your secret place. When your heart's breaking for people that you love. When your heart's breaking because you can't shake something off. He's there with you all the time. I am is the one who sent you, Jeff.
Yes.
You know how you got to North Carolina? I am brought you here.
Amen.
You know how you got to Life Church? I am brought you here. You know how you're still here? I am said you're going to still be here. Angel, you know how you got saved? I am said that's mine.
Amen.
I need you to understand something tonight. The God that we serve is an all-encompassing, almighty. He is an omniscient, omnipotent. He is an all-seeing, all-knowing. He is a God that is your Father.
Amen.
And He fights for you.
Amen. Everybody.
He fights for you. That's who God said He was. Tell Him I am sent you.
Amen.
It's important to know stuff about people. You know, when I was younger in my days, I liked to fight just a little bit. And you always wanted to know those people that you didn't want to mess with. You know who it was you didn't really want to mess with? Those quiet people.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know them. You always wanted to go and punch somebody that talked a lot in the mouth. Because they probably ain't going to be able to take it real good. So if you want to know your enemy, you better know who's fighting for you as well. Not only is God I am, and it's important that we know who God is, Jesus thought it was important that His disciples knew who He was. He wanted the disciples to know. Matthew chapter 16, verse 13, it said, when Jesus came to the region, boy, I can see it now. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, He asked the disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? You see how that's working? Who do others say that I am? Who are the other people that's out there? Who do they say that's not in my circle? Who are they saying that I am? They replied, some say John the Baptist. Others say Elijah. Still others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets. And Jesus said, but what about you?
His inner circle.
Who do you say that I am? His inner circle. Those that had walked with Him and talked with Him and ate with Him and saw Him open up the eyes of the blind, saw Him do many, many wonderful works and perform many miracles, saw Him lay hands on a leper whose nose or ear might have fell off, and when He removed His hands, boop, there was a nose, and boop, there was an ear. The one that raised Lazarus from the dead, He's asking His circle. He said, who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered. Simon Peter, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Wow. He understood. Jesus, you are the Messiah. You are the promised one. That's who you are. By saying He was the Messiah, He was the promised one. You know what else Peter was saying at that time that he really didn't even realize it? Jesus, you are I am here with us.
Yes.
You are Emmanuel, God with us. So we know now who Jesus is. We know who God is. I think I'm trying to get you to understand that it's important for us to know what God thinks about us and who God says that we are. It's important. We don't think about it a lot. There's a man in the Bible by the name of Noah. God called Noah. Noah was just a regular guy. When God called Noah, Noah's like, well, God, who am I? God said, you're the one in whom I have found favor with. That's who Noah was. He found favor with God. How about Ruth? Who am I but a Moabite? God said, you are the affirmer of I am, being the God of Israel and the great grandmother of David. Samuel. But God, who am I? I'm just a child. God said, you are the judge of my people and the anointer of my people's king. How about David? Who is David? We know that when Samuel came to anoint David, his daddy didn't think he was much of anything. His daddy didn't think he was very important. He brought all his other brothers up in front of the prophet. Samuel was like, this is not it. David says, God, who am I? But a shepherd boy. I was rejected by my father and by my brothers. God looks at David and said, you will be the king of my people. You will be a man after my own heart. I will do many wonderful works through you, David. Who am I? Look at someone by the name of Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth was Saul's son who, Lord, brother, one day, I got, law. Mephibosheth was the son of Saul, the king. When Saul got killed, Mephibosheth's nurse picked him up as a child and took off running and dropped him and broke his ankles, and he was a cripple from that point forward. David called Mephibosheth into his presence. Mephibosheth's walking into the presence of King David, which was symbolic of walking into the presence of God. Mephibosheth was like, who am I but a cripple? David looked at Mephibosheth as looking at God, saying, you are the chosen one that I am going to show grace to.
Amen.
King Solomon would say, but who am I but an interracial child? Ooh. Well, that speaks of a lot of issues going on and how people think about people. Why would you call me? I'm an interracial child. I could go back to the reason that there was some Israelites got struck down and killed or cursed because they had a few words to say. Why would we follow Moses? He's married to that Ethiopian woman. You know what that means? Yeah. Moses was married to a black woman. Yeah. God told Solomon, you're not just an interracial child. What you are is you are going to be the wisest person to ever live. Look at Jonah. When God sees Jonah and Jonah looks and says, God, I'm nothing but a cowardly preacher. God looked at him and said, no, sir, you are a preacher that I've called to save an entire city. Yeah. You see how it is that we look at ourselves one way and God's looking at us another way? We can go to the New Testament. Look at Matthew, when Jesus calls Matthew. If you don't have Pureflix, this is just a little, if you don't have Pureflix, it's a Christian app that you can download on your phone or watch on your television. You need to watch the series The Chosen. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
I am not one of those people who like to watch a bunch of Jesus movies because they're usually so inaccurate. But I'm plugging, watch The Chosen. It's amazing. But look at Matthew when Jesus calls him. Matthew's going, I'm a tax collector. Everybody hates me. Jesus said, oh no, that's what you see. But when I look at you, I see one of my disciples. I see you as something so special, you're going to pen the first book of the New Testament. You're going to pen the first book of the gospel that declares who I am. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Peter, God, who am I? I'm a denier. I denied you to a little slave girl. I said, I don't even know you. I called curses down from heaven. But Jesus looked at Peter and said, Simon Peter, upon this rock, upon the confession of your faith, I'm going to build my church. You are a leader of these great things which are to come. Look at the perception, the difference, the way that we see ourselves and the way that God sees us. One of my favorite people in the Bible is Paul. Paul has a completely different story of most people. I'm going to try to hurry. Paul didn't ask God who he was, and he wasn't asking who he was. He told us himself who he was in Romans chapter 7, verse 14. He said, we know that the law is spiritual, but I'm unspiritual, sold as a slave to sin. I do not understand what I do. For what I do, what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate to do, and if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is the sin living in me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is my sinful nature. For I have a desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer me who's doing it, but it's the sin living in me that does it. So I find this work of the law. Every time I want to do good, evil is there with me. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law, but I see another law in work at me, waging war with the law of my mind, making me a prisoner of the law of sins that work in me. What a wretched man I am.
Yeah.
That's an honest thing, right?
Later on, you can see how God said, Paul, this is who you are.
Yeah.
You're not all those things. This is what I am saying that you are. For me personally, I walked away from God, like I told you, in 2008. I struggled with the question for years, who am I? From 2008 to 2018, 2019, I asked myself, every time I would look in the mirror, I didn't recognize who was standing in front of me, looking back at me. I didn't know who that person was. I had become a liar. I had become a cheat. I had become deceptive. I was paranoid. I was a sufferer of ADHD. I had anxiety. I could go on and on and on. I was broken. I was bruised. I was crushed. I'd been hurt by people that were close to me. I looked in that mirror and I didn't know who I was. I could keep telling you all the things that I felt when I looked in the mirror, but I'm trying to hurry. For 2 years, I couldn't even get off the bed or out of the couch. I didn't even get to work because I was in such pain in my body. I owed tens of thousands of dollars, not just to bills, but to bad people. I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I said, when me and Toya started dating, I told her what a mess I was. It wasn't until a little while into that she started understanding this man wasn't lying to me. But what I needed to know when I would look in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself, I would say, who am I? Since July the 21st, 2019, God has constantly reminded me who I am.
Praise God.
Hold on to your seats. Who am I, God? Genesis 1:27 says, I am created in the image of God. Jeremiah 1:5 says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Who am I, God? Matthew 5:14 says, I am the light of the world. I am a city that's set on a hill. Acts 1 says, I'm a witness. Acts 26:16 says, I'm a servant of God. 2 Timothy 2:3 says, I'm a soldier of God. Romans 1:7 says, I'm a saint. Romans 8:18 says, I am the recipient of a glorious future. 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20 says, I am a temple of the Holy Spirit. It says that I have been bought with a price. Lord, this ain't just me, but it is me. If you've been born again, I'm talking about you. This is who you are. This is who God says that you are. 1 Corinthians 15:57 says, I am victorious. 2 Corinthians 5:17, I'm a new creation. 2 Corinthians 5:20, I'm an ambassador of Christ. Philippians 3:20, I'm a citizen of heaven. Ephesians chapter 1 and 2, it says, I am blessed. I am chosen. I'm adopted. I'm redeemed.
Yes.
I'm forgiven. I am sealed. I am loved. I am saved. I am a citizen of heaven. I am God's child. 1 Peter 2:9 says, I am a chosen people. I am a royal priesthood.
Yes.
I am a holy nation. I am God's special possession. Oh boy, that makes you feel good when you're special to somebody. But when you're special to I am, he says you are a special possession. 1 Peter 4:10 says, I am a steward. 2 Peter 1:3 says, I am called. Who are you? I give you a piece of paper at the beginning and you wrote things down. On that piece of paper it described how you saw yourself, how others saw you, and who you really are. For the last little while, I want you to reflect on it because that's how God sees you. I'm going to close with this. 1 John 3:1 says, see what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And I like what John does here. He don't just say, and we are called children of God. He says, and that is what we are. Yes. That's who you are. That's who I am. I'm not the same person I used to be. I may look a little bit the same. I may have put on some weight since 2008. Went up to 276 pounds. Down to 150. Now, somewhere in between. But I'm not the same person I used to be. My best days, church, are not behind me. When I'm talking about me, I'm talking about you too. Yeah. I'm talking about this church. The best days are not behind you. The best days of this church are not behind. Our best days are in the future. Yes, especially when you grab hold of that you are who I am says I am. Thank you for this opportunity. I love you guys. Love you too, baby.
We love you.
Pastor.